Good evening. This is Dr. Somnath Roy of Jogesh Chandra Chaudhary Law College. Today, I will be discussing the provisions regarding divorce by mutual consent as stated in Section 13B of the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. Before going into the provisions relating to divorce by mutual consent, we should know the meaning of the term divorce. What is meant by the term divorce? Divorce means total termination of marriage, total breakdown of marriage. That is dissolution of marriage. The marriage tie does not remain anymore once the decree of divorce is passed by the appropriate court. So the marital rights and obligations of the parties concerned come to an end once the decree of divorce is passed by the court. So it is a dissolution of marriage. So this dissolution of marriage can be basically of two forms or two types. Firstly, it can be a contested divorce, and secondly, it can be a divorce by mutual consent. Now, what is a divorce or a contested divorce? Now, in contested divorce, one party is bringing the allegation against the other for which he or she wants the divorce or wants the dissolution of the marriage. So here, one party to the marriage wants the dissolution of the marriage, and the other party to the marriage does not want the dissolution of marriage for which he or she is contesting such divorce. And the grounds for contested divorce have been stated in Section 13 of the Hindu Marriage Act. Now, the other form or the other type is divorce by mutual consent. The provisions regarding divorce by mutual consent have been laid down in Section 13B of the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955. So, initially, when the Hindu Marriage Act came into force, at that point of time, the provisions of Section 13B were not there in the Act. So there was no provision regarding divorce by mutual consent in the original Act of 1955. So this Section 13B has been inserted in the Hindu Marriage Act by virtue of the Marriage Laws Amendment Act of 1976. Now Section 13B has laid down the provisions regarding divorce by mutual consent, and these is applicable for the marriages which have been solemnized under the provisions of the Hindu Marriage Act. We will find corollary provisions in the Special Marriage Act of 1954. In Section 28 of the Special Marriage Act, we will find that provisions regarding divorce by mutual consent have been laid down. But the provisions of divorce by mutual consent as laid down in Section 28 of the Special Marriage Act is applicable for the marriages which have been solemnized under the provisions of the Special Marriage Act only. So if a marriage is solemnized under the provisions of the Hindu Marriage Act, then the provisions of the mutual consent, divorce by mutual consent as laid down Section 13B will be applicable. Now, Section 13B is having both prospective effect as well as retrospective effect. Now, what is meant by this? Section 13B is applicable for the marriages which have been solemnized before the commencement of the Marriage Laws Amendment Act of 1976, as well as it is applicable for the marriages which have been solemnized after the commencement of the Marriage Laws Amendment Act of 1976. So, the marriages which have been solemnized before the commencement of the Marriage Laws Amendment Act 1976 as well as after the commencement of the Marriage Laws Amendment Act of 1976, for those marriages, Section 13B is applicable. So, for this, we can say that Section 13B of the Hindu Marriage Act is having both prospective effect as well as retrospective effect. Now, section 13b has two subsections, subsection 1 and subsection 2. Now, under subsection 1, it has been laid down, it has been stated that if the parties have decided jointly that they want to dissolve their marriage by way of a decree for divorce by mutual consent, then they will file a joint petition before the district court. So, a joint petition has to be presented before the district court for divorce by mutual consent under section 13b. The petition has to be signed by both the parties. So when the petition is to be submitted by the district court, it has to be signed by both the parties. Right? That both of them want the same thing. Both of them want the dissolution of their marriage. So before submission or while submitting or presenting a petition under subsection 1 of section 13b, certain conditions are required to be fulfilled. Certain conditions are required to be satisfied. So there are basically three conditions which are required to be fulfilled, which are required to be satisfied for submitting or presenting a petition before the district court under subsection 1 of section 13b. Now, what are those three conditions? Firstly, the parties to the marriage, that is the husband and wife, they are living separately from each other for a period of at least 1 year before the presentation of the petition. So the date on which the petition will be filed before the district court, before that, for a span of at least 1 year, for a span of at least 1 year, the parties are living separately from each other. Now, secondly, it has become unable for them to live together as husband and wife. They do not want to live together as husband and wife anymore. And thirdly, they have mutually agreed that they want to dissolve their marriage. They have mutually agreed that they want a dissolution of their marriage. Now, let us recap the three conditions which are required to be fulfilled for the purpose of filing or presenting a petition before the district court under section 13b, subsection 1. Firstly, the parties to the marriage must be living separately from each other for a span of at least 1 year. Secondly, it has become unable for them, rather they do not want to live together anymore as husband and wife. And thirdly, they have mutually agreed to dissolve their marriage. So, in the first condition, I have stated that living separately. So, this phrase living separately has been well explained by our apex court in the case of Sureshta Devi versus Om Prakash. In this case, the Supreme Court stated that the phrase living separately connotes that they are not living as, the parties to the marriage are not living as husband and wife. It does not matter, or it is immaterial as to where they are living. So the place of their residence is immaterial. It has nothing to do with, or it is not concerned with, the place of their living. The only thing is that they are not living together anymore as husband and wife. Maybe they are living under the same roof. It has been stated by the Supreme Court that maybe they are living under the same roof, but not as husband and wife. They are living under the same roof, but they do not have any desire or intention of fulfilling the marital obligations or the marital rights. So, even if the parties to the marriage, they are sharing the same, they are living under the same roof, but they do not have the desire of fulfilling the marital rights or obligations, then it will come within the purview of the phrase living separately. Now, coming to the consent, the third one, the consent, they have mutually agreed. So, a mutual consent has to be there. And that consent has to be a free consent. The consent cannot be obtained by way of any force, fraud, or misrepresentation, or any kind of flaw. So the consent must be a free one as per the Indian Contract Act of 1872. In the same case of Sureshta Devi versus Om Prakash, the consent of the wife was obtained by way of fraud, for which the Supreme Court opined that the consent can be withdrawn unilaterally at any point of time. So these 2 points of law have been well explained and resolved by the Supreme Court in the famous case of Sureshta Devi versus Om Prakash. Now, coming to the second subsection, subsection 2. In subsection 2, it has been stated that the parties will approach the court after completion of 6 months from the date of the presentation of the petition, but before completion of 18 months after the presentation of petition. So, a span of 6 months is given, after which the parties can approach the court. But it has to be within 18 months from the date of the presentation of the petition and not afterwards. This 6 months to 18 months is known as the interregnum period. In this period, it is also known as cooling period. If the parties want to withdraw their petition in the meantime, they can do so, no problem. If the petition is withdrawn by the parties concerned, then the court will not proceed with the matter. But if they do not withdraw the petition in the meantime, then the court will proceed with the matter. Now, why this cooling period or why this interregnum period is given? The philosophy behind giving of this interregnum period has been well explained by the Rajasthan High Court in the case of Suman versus Surendra Kumar. In this case, the Rajasthan High Court stated that by this interregnum period, an opportunity or chance is given to the parties to think over the matter, to give a second thought whether they can reconcile or not. So, always an opportunity is given to them. There is a scope of getting an opportunity by virtue of this cooling period. So, if the parties think over the matter during this period and they think of taking back their petition and they want to live together again as husband and wife, they can do so. A chance is given to them. Okay. Now, another thing is that in a recent case of Amardeep Singh versus Harvind Kaur in the year 2017, the Supreme Court stated that this cooling period of 6 to 18 months is not mandatory. Though the provision is there in subsection 2 of section 13b, yet the Supreme Court opined that it is not mandatory provision, but it is a directory provision. And since it is a directory provision, it can be waived by the court under certain circumstances. In this case, what happened, the Supreme Court, after going through the circumstances and the facts, the Supreme Court thought that there is no requirement of giving any cooling period to the parties concerned. But it is not so for every case. It is, or it may be, under specific circumstances only. Now, I was discussing the provisions contained in subsection 2. There, it has been laid down that the parties will approach the court after completion of 6 months, but before completion of 18 months. So, a date will be given, and the date will be given after completion of 6 months, but before completion of 18 months. On that particular date or day, the court will conduct a hearing of the parties. Both the petitioners or both the parties to the marriage, they will be present before the court. The court will conduct a hearing of the parties. And the court will also conduct any inquiry what it will think fit and proper. So, if the court wants to conduct any inquiry, if the court wants to ask anything to the parties concerned, the court can ask those questions to them also. And thirdly, the court will verify the statements that have been made in the petition. So, in the joint petition, the statements that have been made by the parties concerned, the court will verify the veracity of the statement, the truthfulness of the statement. So, after doing all these things on that particular date, that is, after hearing the parties and after conducting any inquiry as the court will think fit and proper for the ends of justice, and after verifying the statements made by the parties in the joint petition, the court shall give or pass a decree for divorce and declaring that the divorce shall be applicable on and from the date of the decree. So these are the provisions regarding divorce by mutual consent as stated in section 13B of the Hindu Marriage Act. Thank you.